started. All right, welcome. A couple quick updates. We are completely up to date on YouTube. So everything has been uploaded, including the video from yesterday. We did a listing presentation workshop. And I'm about to share next week's calendar with you guys. I'm just doing a quick review of it. Yeah, I'm ready to share it. I'll share it right this moment. Okay, so that's going to be our calendar for next week. We had some requests to review the settlement statement. We're going to do that on Tuesday morning of next week. We have Chartmasters just came out yesterday night. So Monday, I will do a session on Chartmasters, just kind of reviewing with you really what it is and some of the most important slides. So you guys know, it was sent out yesterday. Was it Lucy that sent it out? I think Lucy's usually the one that sends it out. She sent out the Chartmasters link to a big Dropbox. Chartmasters. Where is it? Anyway, yeah, I think it was, I don't see it for some reason. So it was sent out yesterday, a link for Chartmasters. Chartmasters is a company that Keller Williams works with exclusively to crunch all of the FMLS data and put together quarterly reports on what's going on in our marketplace so that you can better understand trends and how things have changed month over month and year over year. And that was just released yesterday. And typically Andy will do a big presentation kind of summarizing everything. I have not seen when that is on the schedule. It's usually the last week in January or the first week in February. But I will do a little sneak peek for you guys on Monday. Okay. And I'll highlight the questions where you find Chartmasters. That is on our intranet. So you go. I'll do a real quick thing for you. I don't know if it's been uploaded yet, but this is where it will be. Or the link that I'm talking about was sent out by email. Oops, not reports, sorry. So this is my, what do you call it? mykw.com. You go to My Market Center intranet. Okay, and then you go to Market Center and is it documents or resources? Yeah, it's documents. Go to documents. Come on. And there are tons of stuff here that you can access, including Chartmasters right there. Okay, and it also has the reports going all the way back. It does not look like they've been uploaded yet, but this is where you will find it if you don't see it on the email. Okay.
There wasn't. I didn't see an email. Did anyone else get an email link? Because I didn't.
All right. Let me.
I thought I had seen it.
Who's
Yeah,
it?
Chartmasters. Hang on. Oh, it looks like it was just sent to some leadership. I'll go ahead and share it right now. I don't know why that was. It's no secret. Okay. Make sense? So now you guys are, that's one of the advantages of being in PC. You get stuff faster than anyone else, okay? So we will do a, yeah, there we go. Okay, so you can access that immediately and we'll do a session on Monday, okay? All right. If you look at the calendar, what I realized is that for better or for worse, the last couple of success series interviews we've had have run long, and that has caused you guys not to really be able to have a launch mastermind. That's kind of fallen by the wayside. So next Friday, I'm going to not do the launch mastermind and do the buyer consultation workshop just like we did the seller consultation workshop yesterday. And I'm gonna look through the schedule and see if I can put in a some extra time for a launch mastermind. Stay tuned for that. Okay. Who has some good news? Who has some good news they want to share?
I do.
All right, Kimberly, talk to us.
I went out to view a home yesterday and was told there was, I was one of 5 at the time. I became one of 6 and put in an offer. Thank you to the beautiful Miss Kathy. And he accepted. We bought a house.
You bought a house. Okay, so wait, I want to hear a little bit more. How did you become the winner?
Well, that's why Kathy is a mentor. She suggested that along with the offer, that I write a personal note appealing to the owners as to why we wanted to buy their home. And I believe not even 2 hours later, I got a message from the seller's agent that he accepted our offer, and no back and forth, nothing. Exactly as Kathy and I agreed to.
I don't know that that is rare, first of all, particularly in this environment. Great job, Kathy.
Oh my
Congratulations,
God.
Kimberly. How exciting. I know you were super excited about that property as well. So great job. Great job.
So Bill, my question, sorry, it's Janice.
Yeah.
My question is, Kimberly, did you write the letter for your buyer or?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you.
Well, she is the buyer, right? You are the buyer.
Yes, I'm the buyer and the agent.
Oh, okay,
Awesome.
thank you.
My first transaction was me buying too, many moons ago. All right, we have a new face in the group today. Shalina Walden, would you like to say hi?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here with you all. I am a brand new agent, fresh meat, I guess. So I will be, of course, leaning on probably all of you at some point or another. And I'm just happy to be here and part
Awesome.
of the team. This is such an awesome market center. So I'm just extremely excited.
Awesome. We're excited to have you. You have found yourself in the right room. So thank you for the investment of your time. And that's our job as leadership, is to get clarity on what it is you want and make sure we're clear on why that stuff is important to you, and then show you the plan and then guide you along. So welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. It's a process. You're not going to have a beautifully functioning business tomorrow. It's a process there. Today, you're going to get to be a better agent, and you're going to meet some people, and you're well on the way. Okay. All right. Today is about role play. Who wants to do some role play? I'm always the one that does the role play. So first of all, is there a topic that you want to go over? And is there somebody that would like to role play a specific situation?
Okay, I'll speak. I can't
right,
do
Todd.
the role playing because little Miss will be Mr. Bill. So can we go over selling and buying? Your client is selling a home and purchasing a new home in this environment.
Yes, good. That's great. That's great. So let's do a tiny bit of background, and then we'll go into a role play. Let me set the stage for you, okay? And for those that want to chime in, obviously, that have some specific experience doing this, you can feel free to shout out your thoughts, okay? So this is what I typically say. Okay, great question, Ty. Thanks for bringing that up. We're obviously seeing that quite a bit now. So here's the biggest challenge, okay, is somebody owns a property, they most likely have some equity, and they may or may not be able to buy their home before they sell, okay? So what I used to say, and this is, I'll talk about knock in just a second, but what I used to say is you basically have three choices. You can either buy before you sell. Okay, some people can do that, some can't. So you could buy before you sell. And if that's the case, then that's really the ideal situation, in my opinion. You buy the home that you want to go to. You don't feel rushed. You don't feel like you have to settle. You don't feel like you have to keep the transaction together and you feel like you're losing the whole time. And then once the home is bought, you clean out the old one and you put it on the market and you sell that without a whole lot of stress. Okay. However, a lot of people aren't in a position to do that. So one of the very first things that I say to somebody in that situation is we got to get an education first. Okay. So the first thing I'd like for you to do is connect with a realtor, or I'm sorry, connect with a lender. Okay. And I want you to ask them two questions. First question is given the fact that I hold this mortgage, meaning I still have this current home mortgage, what is my financing ability? Okay. So I have the mortgage, what's my financing ability? Okay. And they may say 200,000. Okay. Now, second question is, I don't have the mortgage, what's my financing ability? What you're asking there is, if I sell, what is my purchasing power? So we're trying to find out what is our purchasing power if we do not sell, and what is our purchasing power if we do sell. Okay, so let's play out a scenario. Let's say that if I don't sell, I have a budget of 300,000. If I do sell, I have a budget of 600,000. Okay, and the person wants to move to, let's say, Dunwoody. Okay, so we would say to them, well, you probably can't find much in Dunwoody for 300. Let's use a different scenario. Let's say they want to buy in, gosh, where can
Dawsonville. Dawsonville.
Okay, let's move it up. 400 without selling and 600 with selling. Okay, and they want to move to, let's say, Woodstock. Okay, now you would say, here's an example of a $400,000 home in Woodstock. You could buy this prior to selling. Okay, and here's an example of a $600,000 home in Woodstock that you can afford. You just need to sell first. What do you think? Right? Does this make you happy? Does this not make you happy? Does this surprise you? Did this not surprise you? I want to get their pulse of how they think about that whole thing. Okay, because if they're perfectly happy with a $400,000 home in Woodstock, then we might not have to put themselves under several stressful experiences because they would be happy. Now, if they look at that and they say, well, I just can't, I'm not going to settle for that. Say, okay, great. So here are options. Okay. The first is you sell, you list your home, and you attempt to negotiate a contract that, in my opinion, gives you a little bit more breathing room. So maybe instead of a 30 or 35-day close, you maybe end up with like a 45 or a 50-day close, something like that. Okay. And because it's oftentimes a seller's market, you can potentially negotiate that with a buyer. So remember how when I'm suggesting the buyer's agent call the listing agent and say, hey, I'd like to win, what's particularly important to your client? If I was working with a seller that was in that situation, I'd say, hey, give me a 60-day close rather than a 30-day close. Okay. Now, what ends up happening is the buyer comes along, and let's say we're going to close this deal. We negotiate a closing at the middle of March. Okay. So now a typical closing is 30 to 35 days. So that gives me about 3, maybe even close to 4 weeks to go find my replacement home. Okay. So I go out into the marketplace and I try to find what I'm looking for. Another important thing that we have to think about here is how rare is your replacement home? Meaning, like, if I say, hey, I want a $600,000 home in Woodstock that has this and this and this and this, and I go into the search and there's 50 options, then I'm probably not going to have that hard of a time making this thing go. But if I have a very specific need, right, I got to be in this school district with this size lot, I need a fenced yard, I need to be on this street, yada, yada, then if there's like 2 homes available, that's going to put you under a lot of stress, and the buyer may not be able to find what they're looking for in the appropriate amount of time. Does that, y'all follow that? So you have to play all these scenarios out with them before you stick the sign in the yard. Number one, to make sure they know you know what you're talking about. And number two is they can make a sophisticated choice. Okay. Now, the issue with this process is even if I do find what I'm looking for, you got to understand that now I'm in 2 contracts. Let's say I submit an offer, it goes through. Okay. And now, and this doesn't always take place, but I think that Lawanda and Pam and Markia and Kathy, some people that have been around for a long time, they would say you're going to end up probably being a relatively poor negotiator in both of them. Okay. And what I mean by that is, let's say you go and you do your home inspection on the home you're going to buy. Okay. And you find that there's some, this issue and that issue and that issue and that issue. You're going to be super reluctant to kill the deal because that's going to kill everything, right? It's going to kill the other deal too, probably. Okay. And so oftentimes you end up not getting repairs that you would otherwise hold a little firmer to. Then your buyer comes and starts asking you for stuff. And because you're afraid that if you don't say yes, the buyer's going to walk and that's going to kill everything and prevent you from buying the home that you really like, then you oftentimes agree to give them more than you would if those transactions were separate. Y'all follow that? So that's a potential drawback, is you end up feeling like you got to keep both of these deals together, and you end up will probably leave money on the table. Okay. That's one of the, so that kind of that helps you understand solution 1. Okay. Or really that would be solution 2. Solution 1 would be you buy without having to sell. Solution 3 would be you treat the transactions completely separate. You sell, you move into some type of temporary housing, and you don't feel like you're a poor negotiator. You treat that transaction completely separate, and then you hang tight until you find the ideal property for you. Okay. And the biggest drawback there is you got to move several times and move into temporary housing or something of that nature. Make sense? Now, Knox, a smart company, they came in and said, here's the issue. Not only is moving multiple times not that great, and it's also option number 2 isn't that great. And so we're going to come up with a solution to allow homeowners to access their equity, which is the biggest preventer from buying without selling, and buy, and the qualification part. So Knock comes in and says, not only will we help you buy your new home, we'll prevent you from having to pay double mortgage, and we'll give you a little cash if you qualify to pretty up your old house. And all you have to do is use us for the loan. And yes, there's an expense, but if you don't have the cash, then you have to pay the person who has the cash, right? And so that came in and became a possible solution. So let me go ahead and say this out loud. If you do not know what I'm talking about with respect to Knock, you need to learn now. Okay, this is I'm not saying you have to use Knock. I'm just saying it's a great tool for situations like this if the person qualifies. Is there anybody that can just post the link for the Knock training? If John, are you able to do that real fast?
I could try to find. Yep.
All right, thank you. Many of us are Knock certified. I highly recommend that you understand that product and that you can use that if need be, and share that solution with others. Pam, Kathy, did I miss anything? Do you have any thoughts on what I said, or you want to add anything to it?
You are right, spot on.
Right.
Good information.
Yeah. So again, it's not our choice. It's the buyer and seller's choice. Our job is to kind of compile all the information so that they can make the right choice, and so that they can understand the pros and the drawbacks to each of their possible solutions. Okay. Ty, does that clear up what you were asking?
Yes, I more so wanted to hear it role played out, but sure, thank you.
Okay, so I mean, we could do that. I just wanted to set the stage for you.
Oh, got you. Okay, yes.
So a role play out would be you, not to kind of make it brief, but you would say, hey, I'm in this dilemma. And I would say, okay, well, the first thing we want to do is let's determine what your possibilities are, what your options are, right? and you would say, the first thing I'd like for you to do is to meet with a lender. There's no cost or obligation. I'm role playing now, if you can't tell. Okay. The first thing I'd like for you to do is meet with a lender. There's no cost to meeting with the lender. There's no obligation to meeting with the lender or anything like that. It's simply an opportunity for you to fully understand your options. First thing we'd like to do is determine, can we qualify without selling? And if so, how much? Okay. And as always, it's not just important to know how much, but what is the payment with said how much, right? Because the bank might give you 400 grand, but if you don't like the payment on it, no one's going to be happy, right? So whenever somebody says, I'm qualified for X, you might want to ask a follow-up question that says, just to be clear, have you seen a loan worksheet? And do you fully understand what would be required to borrow that amount of money from a down payment perspective and from a monthly perspective? Okay, because the banks they're not liberal, but they oftentimes will give you more money than the person might feel comfortable with, right? So if they come back and say, hey, I can borrow $450,000 and it is going to have a $2,100 payment, and the person really wants to be more like $1,900, then they need to go back to the lender and say, hey, what would that look like? Would that be more like 420 or 410? Or, I want to make sure I don't go find a house that I don't feel comfortable affording. Even though you tell me I can afford it, I don't want to pay the bill for it, right? So what we're first going to do, remember, is go to the lender and determine, can we qualify holding a current mortgage? And if so, how much? The second question would be, let's assume for a second I sold the home. What would my purchasing power be? Okay, then we need to go out and we're going to learn more about what you're looking for on the purchase side. Okay, so we're going to understand what type of loan you're going to get. We're going to understand what type of down payment you're going to get. We're going to understand your budget, etc. And by the way, we're going to do a little bit of preliminary analysis on the sale of your home, on the price that you would expect to get. So Ty, we'll do a little research, and it looks like you could expect to get. This isn't a quote. I'm not saying this is what I think it's worth. I'm not saying this is what I would list it for. But let's just assume for a second we sold your home for $450. You pay off your debt, and we do a little net to seller calculation. Everything is a range. Everything is an estimate. And we say, hey, we're going to take $45,000 from this sale, and we're going to combine it with whatever else you got and whatever the lender tells you is possible. And that's going to tell us what the ultimate buy side number would be. Then we're going to make sure you like what the option is, because we don't want to sell your house and then you not like what the buying option is. That's not going to help anybody. Okay, so you're really playing all these scenarios out with them to make sure the plan has potential. If the plan doesn't have potential, meaning they don't have a good budget to afford what they want on the second transaction, or they can't borrow for some reason, or they can't get the type of home they want, then this plan's got no legs, right? It's going to die somewhere. So we need to make sure the plan's got potential before we go back to the seller and say, all right, let's stick the sign in the ground. Does that make sense? So Ty, just to summarize, we're going to go to the bank, or we're going to go to the lender, and we're going to find out what's possible without selling the home and what is possible with selling the home. Then we're going to do a little analysis on your current home so that we can understand how much profit you might take from that sale. Then we're going to put the two pieces of information together, and we're going to analyze what's possible on the buying end, right? Notice how I'm saying a lot of we and us and together and all this stuff. So that's presupposing that we are going to be working together, right? And then you're going to tell me what you're thinking, right? Do you like this solution? Is this something that you'd like to do? Then you can lay out the 3 scenarios, right? Scenario number 1 may be killed right off the bat because they can't afford what they want without selling. Option number 2, you can explain, hey, so this is how it would work if we tried to sell and then at the same time we tried to buy. Here's some drawbacks that you might encounter. How do you feel about those drawbacks? Option number 3 is we sell and potentially find something, but be okay with the temporary housing. Or option 4 is we work with somebody like a program like Knock, and we can, no obligation, no fee, get in touch with them and have them make a proposal to us as well. How do you feel about those options? Okay. Now, if I was on the receiving end of that explanation, how I would feel is I've got somebody who is being incredibly thorough, who is not steering me in a particular direction, right? They're just simply showing me my options, who is actually asking me for feedback on all these options to kind of test the waters and determine, is this person nervous about plan C or unwilling to do plan 2 or whatever. We're trying to feel, is this a plan that we want to approach, or how do we want to approach these plans? And somebody who's happy to answer all of my questions. So if I wasn't convinced that I was going to work with that agent 20 minutes ago, I'm convinced now. Does that make sense? And then you just go through the process, right? So there is no, there's no perfect solution if you don't have the cash, right? If you don't have the cash to go buy what you feel like buying whenever you feel like buying it, then you have to work within the rules of the person that's got the cash. And the person that's got the cash is the lender. Was that helpful? And really, Ty, if somebody balks at all that, and they're like, well, I want this and I want to do this, yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but look, if you don't have the cash, you can't do that. So here are your options, right? So if they're like, well, that's not fair, or I don't want to do it that way. Well, I don't know what to tell you, right? If you got the cash, you can do whatever you want. But if you don't have the cash, then you have to play by their rules. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Right. And they may have to do some calculations on, hey, moving company, how much would it cost to move? How much would it cost to move twice? Right? Would you give me a discount? Do you have storage facility options? Right? You may really need to, do some math to determine what makes more sense. Right? And what you could potentially lose on an inspections. And then it's things like, what happens if one of the appraisals goes bad and you end up having to bring more money to the table or lower the price on your sale? Would you be able to deal with that? And if you decide not to deal with that, then you just wrecked both deals, right? So getting involved in scenario 2 is not for the weary, okay? You better have a little cash in the bank and you better have nerves of steel because you're going to be tried, okay? Now I've done it before, I certainly have, but it's definitely stressful. And as I suggested earlier, we probably did leave money on the table. Now, truthfully, it was probably less than the cost of moving twice, but it was definitely stressful. Does that make sense? Okay, give me your thoughts on that. Does that stuff make sense? Did you have any follow-up questions? Was there, have you come across additional objections that I didn't address? Walk me through what you're thinking right now. I explained everything perfectly. Everyone is perfectly educated.
I often get, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. There's no homes out there. Why would I sell?
Well, the truth is if you can't find what you desire, then you shouldn't sell, right? Our job is to not convince somebody to sell. I mean, our job is to, you're only going to sell if the desire to sell exceeds the pain of selling, right? So, and the hassle of selling. So if somebody says, well, there's nowhere to go, you could say, so what brought, moving is hard. What brought that up to you? Like, why did you think about doing that in the first place? And they'll say, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. The question is blah, 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 blah what level of stress is that causing them? How miserable are they with those set of circumstances? And if it's just like not all that miserable, then yeah, they look at the marketplace and say, I don't see anything out there that's going to cause me to go through this. And that's totally appropriate. But blah, 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 blah might be so miserable that they go and move somewhere different because that's so miserable. So if that was the difference. I don't know if you were on yesterday morning. That, for example, is a condition. That is not an objection. The status of the market is a condition, right? How many homes that match this particular person's needs and desires and criteria is not something that any of us can control. So if your prospect can't find what they're looking for, then there ain't nothing to do. Now, what you could do is give them all the education that I just told you and make sure that everyone on the team is ready to go, because like literally there could be a listing agent putting that home on the market today that would be the perfect match for them. And at that very moment, you might need to call the troops up and say, hey, we're ready. Lender, we're ready. Attorney, we're ready. Get out there, get out there, get out there. Inspector, radon guy, boom, 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 boom. We got to get this thing done fast. That is not the time, by the way, to say, how do you connect DocuSign to Command and what documents do I use? Like, get that done before there's stress. You follow me? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm just coming at it from a different, we're presupposing that this is someone who, it's almost sounds like you've got someone who's coming to you. And I'm talking about, I'm reaching out to people, cold calling, whatever. And their immediate response every time that I've had anyone has been, there's nowhere to go. Why would I even think about selling right now?
This is Janice. Hey, Bill, what about asking the person if they'd want to go out and look at homes? I mean, granted, the market is very, shallow. We have very little inventory, but there should be something we could find similar to what they like. If they just think there's something possibly out there, but if you just say, oh yeah, you're right, there's nothing out there, then
yeah,
they're not going to want to.
I might say, if you look, let me show you this real fast again. So this is the FMLS Market Watch, right? You got, it is my opinion, you should be looking at this every single day.
Yep.
So I'm looking at Metro Atlanta right now over the course of the last 3 days. So Greta, here's a script that you could use. Okay, so somebody says, there's nowhere to go. Why would I sell now? There's nowhere to go. I would ask, so if there was somewhere to go, have you thought about moving, right? First of all, get them talking, because they may express their motivation that you can deal with at some point in the future and be a good value to them. But you could say, Mr. Jones, would it surprise you to know that there's been 827 homes that have gone on the market in the last 3 days? Like, if you haven't checked the market in the last 20 minutes, there may be the perfect home for you. What is it that you're looking for? Right?
Hey, Bill, I have a suggestion.
But hang on just one second. So you see what I'm saying? So you alert them to the fact that the market, yes, there may not be a lot of listings from a historical standpoint, but there's 827 new listings in the last 3 days. Let's look at it from 24 hours. Hey, in the last 24 hours, Mr. Jones, there's been 323 new listings. Have you looked in the market today? Because you may have missed something. So tell me a little bit about what you're looking for, because I'm looking for buyers and sellers all day long. I might find exactly what you're looking for. And if I do, how would you like me to get it into your hands? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So tell them what's possible and what does exist, rather than letting them continue on their, oh, there's nothing out there. I just don't think that's true. Markia, go ahead.
I think it'll go hand in hand with what I was saying yesterday on a call. With if someone give you that for objection, you can say, well, good thing about me being a realtor is that I have access to the database. How about I set you up on an auto email, give me 3 areas you're interested in, price point, and let's see what comes up so you won't miss anything, to try to see if there's actually inventory out there that you're interested in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If they say there's nothing out there, what they're telling you is, I am a seller, I am a potential future seller that has not only thought about moving, but I've done a little bit of research and I need some help. So that is actually a much warmer prospect than you think. They just don't have all the information. So your job is to extract their motivation as quickly as possible and to get a better feel for what they're looking for so you can show them that there are possibilities. Right? Let's get them into thinking about how they can reach their goal rather than letting them believe that they can't.
And can I
Tyler, you-
piggyback off of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, now if this is my experience. If you do that, pay very close attention, because I did that with a client who's 3 cities, Beaufort, Swanee, and Sugar Hill, and literally nothing has come up.
Well,
So I had
that,
to go
again,
kind of
that's a
scrub some
condition.
things to email her, just so it's not re-verifying what she's already thinking. Like, I said
Good.
nothing came, you set me up, and still nothing has come. So I just kind of scrubbed through some stuff and kind of shot it her way. It may not have the basement, but it does have this. What do you think of this? It's just to kind of keep it where it just doesn't reinforce that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'll send you what's out there. And personally, I don't know if I would put somebody like that on there's no rules for this, but a lot of the automated searches that I used to set up, I used to send to myself and title it the client's name so that I could determine if it was something that I wanted to personally share with them rather than it be coming from like a machine, right? So I wouldn't say, I'm sure there's something out there for you. I'd say, hey, there's a chance you're very right, but maybe tell me a little bit what you're looking for, because in the last week, there's been over 1,400 new listings. So I don't know if it's out there today, but at some point that home's going to become available. So tell me a little bit more about it so I can notify you right away, right? I can't promise it's going to be available today, but what I can promise you is I will be looking, right? So by the way, when it comes to real estate, who is it that you trust? Well, no one's ever offered to do that for me. Wonderful. By the way, what is your birthday and your address and your email address and your cell phone number and your birth type? And do you know anyone else that wants to buy homes? Right? You see what I'm saying?
Bill, I have a question.
Okay, can barely hear you though.
Oh, I'm sorry. What about now? Is that better?
Not much.
All right. Let me see.
Can everyone hear her?
Can you guys hear me?
That's a little bit better.
Yes.
Oh, I have a question because I actually like the comment that was just made about the specific buyer that had her 3 targeted areas and was pretty savvy already. So my question to you is that, so when someone does present that type of scenario, would you suggest that at this point, since there is a lack of supply there, that they just venture out, and if you set them up on the market watch or something like that to look at other properties, to go out a little bit further and consider further out? Is that what you're doing versus letting her go into her targeted areas? Or what exactly are you doing for her in
Well,
that situation?
I think that the answer to that's really going to come from her motivation or the prospect motivation, right? So, it's to say, tell me real specifically what you're looking for. Like if somebody would only move if they could move to Beaufort, and I say, hey, it doesn't look like there's anything in Beaufort. Do you want to move to, Collins Hill or whatever? Then they're going to be like, no, are you listening to me? I said Beaufort, right? So I don't know that they're ripe to like start pushing them to something that beyond what they've specifically asked for. I think it's okay to not find something on the market. That's not the point. The point is you're building the relationship. And if something ever does come up on the market, it's a reason for you to continue to communicate with that person. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's kind of like, hey, I would sell my car if I could buy a Beamer. And then you'd say, well, hey, I found this Acura. It's like, dude, were you listening? I said I would sell if I could find a Beamer. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask enough questions, hey, is there anything else? Are there any other areas that you would consider? Right? And they'll say, oh,
Right.
yeah, I could go over to Sugar Hill or whatever. Okay, great. Now you can include Sugar Hill. If they say, no, I got to be in Duluth because, if I live in Duluth, my, employer gives me a little bonus or something. I don't know what they might say, but you need to find out what the parameters are. the more questions you ask, the more you're going to find out about what boundaries these people have. All right, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Whenever somebody goes negative, you got to turn them to the positive as quickly as you can. There's no houses out there. Oh, the wrong president. Oh, the this, the this, the this. Look, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? What information do you lack right now? See what I'm saying? All right, you guys, this has been fun as usual. I appreciate everything you're doing, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Oh, for those that have a meeting with me today, please get your numbers in before the meeting, okay? Thank you. See you later.